Okay, I don't know how long this video is going to be, and I don't really give a shit right now, people, okay? It is clear to see that these healthcare professionals, Fraser Health Authority and their fucking agents, they destroyed the evidence, okay? You know, they had no intentions. I mean, I'm serious. These people have been so apathetic about this whole situation. You can't imagine. You just can't imagine. Like, they destroyed the evidence. I don't think a pathologist could even do an autopsy in this situation because they allowed her body to just rot on a machine. There was no coma. People in a coma that have functioning organs can stay in a coma for 40 years because their organs are functioning. Okay? Once the organs start dying, okay, and they get damaged because they go into all those stages that I just went through on this video, that means she had been dead for like quite a while, people. Quite a while. And these paramedics, they must have known that. They must have known that because of the body temperature. That's why they moved her to the freaking final floor in the kitchen to cool her down, to slow down that decomposing freaking process, right? You know? Like, they knew this, but they did it anyway. They Narcaned her like 4 times, and then it was something else that got her heart started. But it was done like Frankenstein crap, right? You know, and then they put her on a machine knowing that she was dead. They did it anyway, people, so they could run their scans and charge $100,000 for a freaking brain scan once every 2 days. You know what I mean? And like, what did it cost $1 million to monitor my dead daughter's body? Is that what Fraser Health got out of this? $1 million? Public taxpayers paid $1 million to fucking look after a corpse, right? And psychologically terrorize the family, right? Freaking lie to our face, you know, let people come in that aren't supposed to be there because they're the ones that probably did it, because they've always had an agenda to hurt my daughter, right? Just so they could get the baby. Well, you know, let the fucking sister go have a baby. You know, let the guy go knock up another woman. And he showed up at the courthouse with another woman. That bitch probably pregnant. Oh, wait, it's going to be her turn yet, right? Because we're dealing with some sick pups here, like real sick pups, where our union sector, they're not protecting the public. They're not. They're not. They're just thinking about their fucking pension plans. It's pretty apparent. And the healthcare system's just thinking to prop up their machines and their pension plans, right? At the expense of targeted individuals. Because, what, mom talks on YouTube and tells you exactly what the hell's going on, right? Right? Like, this is some morbid shit. Like, really morbid. You can't even write a book on this stuff. Like, this is, like, worse than science fiction. This is worse than a horror story. Okay? This is something that you would read in some fucking fantasy book that somebody, you know, just wanted to write a story. You know? This should not be real life. But this is real life, people. This happened to my daughter. Okay? And there's no rhyme or reason for it because they knew she was dead. That's the thing. They knew. They knew. But they did it anyway. For what morbid reason? Why? Why did they do it? Right? Other than to psychological warfare against my family. Right? Again. Again and again and again. Like, for what purpose? Like, why can't these people be fucking decent? Like, are they even decent people? Are they even people? Like, do people do stuff like this? People don't do this kind of stuff. Lizard people do this kind of stuff. People that are not human do this kind of stuff. People that come from a different planet do this kind of stuff. Abnormal people do this kind of stuff. Sick people do this kind of stuff. I mean, it's one thing being murdered and then having your body desecrated like that in a freaking hospital setting just to be put up on display, right? To then have the doctor hound you to quickly turn off the freaking machines because he knew that she was just a matter of time before she started fucking exploding. As they hid the freaking truth from you, yet? As they hid the truth from you? Made you think that there was some hope in there when in fact they knew there was never no hope from the very get-go before they even hauled her ass out of here, and then sit up there and fight to say, oh no, she was alive right up until the 19th of April? Hell no. Hell no. She was not. She was not. And then not to follow up on how she died, right? In terms of who killed her. Because she didn't do this for herself. Easy for these people to sit up there and blame fentanyl. But you know what? We know her. All her friends know her. This is not ShaMay. ShaMay did not do this to herself. She didn't do this to herself any more than what this hospital did to her. And then for them to say she did it to herself because it was the duty of care. That's what she would have wanted. ShaMay would have wanted to be hooked up as a corpse onto machines. Because that's the duty of care that we provide to the public. We don't care how you got there, as long as you got there, right? And we got to milk every last penny out of the system to keep you there. Until the last minute before you exploded. Because we didn't want the nurses having to deal with that part. Because that was just too gruesome. Okay, people, so it's like April 27th here. I just printed it out. Here we go again with ink and paper, people. You know, typical union crap, right? Anyway, this is a verdict of a coroner's inquest. This was done back in 2017, January of 2017. I read just a little bit about this. Basically, what happened was this young man, he went in like in and out of jail, all this other stuff. Had been in like 11 different recovery houses and programs and all that, you know, blah 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 blah. Anyway, he ended up in some Sunshine Coast Health Center in Powell River, right, which provides rehabilitation services to persons addressing alcohol or drug dependencies. Long story short, he was on Suboxone or something like that, and treatment motivated to attend. And then they gave him something to calm his nerves because he was being a little, he needed anti-anxiety medication. They gave him that, and his medication was last dispensed in the evening at 11:45 p.m. and the staff member noted no signs of intoxication or impairment. And later Brandon was seen by two other clients outside having a smoke. Brandon left and returned to his room at 2:45 a.m. March 7, 2016, and that was the last time he was seen alive. Anyway, long story short, I guess because he was in a healthcare facility, right? He had the privilege of having an autopsy. Unlike my daughter, who is just being played off like, I don't know, people, like I am so freaking mad. I am so mad because here it said that the fentanyl killed him and he had, I guess, heroin or something in there as well. And it was done through ingestion. Ingestion. That means he ate the shit. Okay? And the fentanyl was, the police were looking around and they said it was like some green specks or something. I don't know. He was unable to estimate when the drugs would have been taken, but noted that the testing showed that the heroin use to be recent. In other words, somehow, some way, he got this stuff up in Powell River, either at the rehabilitation center or he brought it with him. But he hadn't been using drugs for a while. And because he hadn't been using drugs for a while, he didn't have a tolerance, and that's what killed him when he took the fentanyl, right? The point is, people, is this person got an autopsy, okay? This person has been a drug addict for a very long fucking time, and this person had the privilege of having an autopsy. My daughter was going to school. My daughter was upstairs avoiding an individual that had a history of being abusive, okay? I didn't know that person was down there. Okay, people, I didn't know. I just know that she wanted to be upstairs and get on with the school stuff, and that's what I helped her with, okay? And Surrey Memorial Hospital have been lying to my family almost from the get-go. Almost from the get-go, people. From the freaking fucking get-go. Like, I have already had people tell me that I should be filing lawsuits again. I should be filing a lawsuit against the Surrey Death Hospital. I'm like, Surrey Death Hospital? That's extreme. Yeah, it's the Surrey Death Hospital. I've been advised I should be filing lawsuits against the Surrey RCMP because they don't like to do their jobs. Right? It's too easy for these people just to act like fentanyl was taken on a person's own accord, unless, of course, the corporation has something, the corporation has something to lose. So they did the autopsy because the death happened in the premises of a health authority. They're not doing an autopsy for my daughter because, you know, cops have been coming out throughout the years because of Sierra, right? A few times when Brooks was around with his alcoholism, they came. So, you know, they kind of like broad sweep the family. We're just some sacrificial family, you know, just fuck with people's brains. You know, if they're not taking children, they're taking old people. And now that my daughter is dead, you know, they don't give a shit, people. Like the coroner. Oh, you're twisting my words around. No, lady. You said that my daughter had not had an autopsy done, that they weren't going to do an autopsy, and that I needed to start making plans to pick her up ASAP because there was not going to be an autopsy, even though I requested one. And the brain doctor, when he sat there and hounded us to turn off the freaking life support because he damn well knew that it was just hooked up to a dead body, told me that the coroner doesn't take fentanyl freaking overdoses lightly, that they investigate, but this one doesn't even want to fucking look at anything. Oh, you're twisting my words. Because when I called her on it, like, what the fuck, like, you know, like, I can't handle this shit anymore. Oh, well, the police are maybe going to investigate and, you know, and I don't know, like, you know, we'll have to wait and see. Well, which one is it? Do I have to come pick up the body, or are we waiting to see? Waiting to see what? That you're not going to do an autopsy in a week from now? When it should have been done by now? Do I file another lawsuit, people? Who? Against the coroner? Against the police? Against the fucking hospital? Against the paramedics? Everybody's standing around with their fucking thumbs up their asses. Oh, sorry, I'm swearing again. The only reason this person had the privilege of getting an autopsy, even though they're a known drug addict for umpteen years, was because the corporation was trying to protect itself. We're here. You know, they just want to drive us mad. Drive us mad so that we don't come back and fight for Uncle John. Right? Because we're bound to fail. Right? Because the senior staff within the healthcare system get a green light to perpetrate criminal activity against the most vulnerable in our society. And here we go again with round what? Fucking 5 with ShaMay. It said here that this fella ingested it. Ingesting means eating. So, autopsies can tell some things. My daughter needs an autopsy because what if he hit her on the fucking head? Right? Wouldn't that show? Somewhere along the line, I asked the doctor, what if she was suffocated? Right? Before this stuff was introduced to her body. Right? Wouldn't the autopsy show that? That she was suffocated first before fentanyl or whatever kicked in? Was it put into her muscle? Was she hot capped into the muscle? Is that why it took 30 minutes to kick in? Right? Or 15 minutes to kick in? Or was it simply just a pinprick with a needle? Because if you put it with a needle and you don't even have to inject the shit in with the needle, people, are you listening to me? You just put the needle into the skin and boom, that's it. You're gone. Any rate, I'm going to do a video on this, people, on that chart. Right? The different methods of hot capping somebody. Hot capping means giving somebody a dose of fentanyl knowing that it's going to kill them. People do it normally to kill somebody that runs around stealing drugs to get high. But now it's being used to kill off mothers so that babies can be taken by disgruntled exes. Well, the healthcare system and any other freaking government system doesn't give a shit. Unless, of course, it's directly related to their corporation.
Please.
Do you see? The Minister of Health and CEOs of regional health authorities. That's the only reason this guy, even though he'd been an addict for a long, long time, got his autopsy. Because the corporation was looking to protect itself. Didn't want a lawsuit for somebody ODing in one of their programs up on the Sunshine Coast. Right? You know what I'm saying, people? And most of the treatment centers Brandon attended were privately run, and fees were in the range of $25,000 to $3,000, $30,000 per month. Who was paying for that? His parents? Licensing to prescribe Suboxone was a more onerous process that it is today. Further testimony by many of the treatment centers noted that they currently had access to Suboxone and that they were interested in the research literature on the use of Suboxone in the treatment of opiate dependence. My daughter didn't even have an addiction, people. She was murdered. Okay? And they don't want to do an autopsy to rule out how she was murdered because they just want to play it like she did it to herself. Right? Because I guess we can't afford $25,000 to $30,000 per month to pay to one of their programs through the Care and Assisted Living Act, right? It's in here somewhere. I was just reading it. Community corrections. There it is, right? Brandon's death triggered licensing review at Sunshine Coast Healthcare Center under the Community Care, there it is, Community Care and Assisted Living Act. That's the only reason he had the privilege to get a freaking autopsy, unlike my daughter. Okay, here's another one. Here's an 88-year-old man. He goes nuts, people. It's right here. Do you see that? It's this 88-year-old male who lived in an independent living section of the residence, again, healthcare system, right, at Cheen Valley in Agassiz. And this guy, he had to be taken to the hospital because he displayed uncharacteristically aggressive behavior in the dining room of the something village the previous evening, which included striking a staff member. Well, who knows? Maybe they were just giving him too many drugs and he was having a bad reaction to the drugs, you know, and maybe they were trying to do something that he didn't like and he lashed out at them. 88 years old. It's not like he's very freaking strong, people, but they called the cops on him anyway, and he was apprehended under the Mental Health Act and transferred to Chilliwack General Hospital. He was discharged home later the same day with the recommendation that he have further assessment and treatment in the community. On September 23rd, 2015, a care aide was asked to attend to his suite because he had complained about the smoke alarm going off. When she attended, she found him sitting on the bed holding a knife to his abdomen and not responding to her question. She called 911. Anyway, police came. They ended up pepper spraying the old 88-year-old man, right? Because he was starting to cut his abdomen. Probably had something to do with the medications that they were giving him, and it made him nuts, right? Obviously, he wasn't happy to be where he was. And anyway, they entered his suite, and shortly thereafter, he began to cut his abdomen. The police sprayed him with pepper spray and handcuffed him behind his back. This is an 88-year-old man. BC Ambulance Service personnel attended, and he was transferred to an ambulance by stretcher. Paramedics found that he had a very elevated heart rate and administered something. His heart rate slowed, and then he went into cardiac arrest at, hours and could not be resuscitated. An autopsy was conducted. Wow, he gets an autopsy. 88-year-old man that goes nuts, probably because of drugs that was prescribed by some doctor within the healthcare system, and because we know that there's lots of old people on drugs within the healthcare system, but he gets an autopsy because he was in the system, people. That's the point of this one. Because he was already within the care, healthcare system. He was in some old folks' home. So again, they had to autopsy him. So they protect themselves, but not my daughter, right? They're not autopsying on my daughter. Why? Why don't they want to know what happened to her? Right? She could have been suffocated, could have been hit on the head, right? They don't want to know how fentanyl got into her body. Like, was she hot capped into the muscle? Was it injected? Was it put into a liquid, like into her drink? Was it stuffed down her throat? Was it snorted with a straw and blowed up her nose? Like, which one was it, people? Was she poked with a needle? Huh? Because she sure in hell didn't do it. But I guess because it didn't happen in the actual healthcare system itself in some program, she doesn't qualify. Discrimination, right? Just another sacrifice. That's all it is, just another sacrifice. So here's another one. Complete post-mortem analysis, including autopsy and toxicology examinations, revealed no anatomic cause of death, but the presence of amethylene in a range where lethal outcomes had been observed. This was some dude that had a history of drug abuse and schizophrenia that rented some room in probably the Dell in Surrey, and when it came time for checkout, they came in and found him on the ground half conscious, called the cops. They showed up. Anyway, he ended up, his heart stopped, all this other crap, and because, again, public union sector, right, had to protect themselves, right? So this guy got, in this case, they got the autopsy and the toxicology examination, but they're not doing it for ShaMay. Why, people? Why are they not doing it for ShaMay? Okay, I'm going to put this first, people, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know what kind of hospital this is, but they hooked up a dead body. My daughter died on April 11th between 9:30 and 10, okay? This is what she was showing when they disconnected the machine. This is why the doctor was getting nervous and he was saying, we need to do it now because it gets ugly, because he knew exactly what he had on his hands. They knew what they had on their hands when she came in. So why they hooked her up to a machine, I'll never know. Putrefaction follows a predetermined timetable in nature, and after the first 36 hours, the neck, the abdomen, the shoulders, and the head begin to turn a discolored green. You would have seen that with ShaMay, actually with the red underneath her body, because she was laying out flat. But of course, we never got to look at that because, paramedics were working on her, and we didn't stop to roll her over to see if she had been turning red. But this didn't happen to her while in the hospital because there was a little bit of oxygen going through her system because of the machine that was pumping her heart. So this is then followed by bloating, which ShaMay got extremely bloated. An accumulation of gas, this is important, people, that is produced by bacteria toiling away within the deceased. Even though her heart was pumping, she was deceased. This bloating is most visible around the face, where the eyes and the tongue protrude as the gas inside pushes them forward. I told you her eyes were starting to leak out and her tongue was just sticking out more and more and more and more and more. And liquid was coming out of her skin. There we go, blisters. That's what was happening to her. As the body continues to putrefy, the skin blisters. That's what we've seen on ShaMay. Water blisters. Hair falls out. Maybe that's why they didn't want us to pull on her hair, because they knew that her hair was going to fall out. because the nurse specifically told us not to touch the hair because she was going for autopsy, and she didn't want the autopsy to be wondering why ShaMay had no hair, because some people wanted to take a little bit of her hair. So she wanted to leave the hair in place. No, it's because she was covering up the fact that they hooked up a dead body to the machine. Why, people? Why did they do that? And the fingernails of the deceased began to sink back into the fingers. The skin blisters are also filled with large amounts of liquid. I seen that on my daughter's skin, just as in the blisters you might get from running or walking too far. Check out this, people. It is also important to note that the internal organs of the deceased will begin to decay in a particular order, beginning with the intestines, which, as well as holding bacteria, also hold various levels of acid fluid, which, when unable to circulate, begin to eat through their surrounding tissues. As the intestinal organs decay, so do the liver, kidneys, lung, and brain. What did they say she had? Severe liver damage, severe kidney damage, severe lung damage, severe heart damage, and brain. Why did they hook up a dead body? Why did they jumpstart a dead body and then hook her up to machines knowing that she was dead? And then want to sit up there and argue with me. The coroner wants to argue with me and insist that my daughter died on April 19th when they shut off the machines, which is a bunch of crock. And then say they don't want to do an autopsy. Well, yeah, they don't want to do an autopsy because I don't know what the hell these people did. The contents of the stomach may also slow down the rate of decay if there is an undigested food in and around that area. But we'll never know, people. We'll never know because she should have had that autopsy the next day. They should have pronounced her dead and went off and did an autopsy ASAP. But they didn't do that. No, instead they hooked her up to machine for almost a week, right? And then got mad at us because we were reluctant to turn it off. After they misled us to think that they were saving her life when in fact they knew she would already died. And they iced her down, so of course they said they iced her down to prevent the brain swelling. No. They iced her down to slow down the decaying process. Because when they took away the ice packs, remember how hot she got?
Yeah.
She got real hot, people. She got so hot that everybody started asking to ice her down again.
Hello?
Huh. Right? Like, this is science fiction Frankenstein crap. This, like, seriously. And they also said that she had a superbug on her skin. Well, yeah, no wonder she was the corpse. That's why. With a septic wound will suffer the effects of faster as the bacteria from sepsis spreads quickly and does damage on the larger and faster scale. Is the senior doctor responsible for the performance of autopsies and for determining as to how an individual died. They don't want to know because they can simply say it was fentanyl. It was fentanyl. So let's just hook her up to a machine and see what happens to the body as it rots on the machine. And now it's too late to do an autopsy because they mucked up the body. They didn't want to see if she got hit on the head. They didn't want to see if she got smothered. They didn't want to see if something was forced down her throat. They didn't want to see if she was pricked or poked with something, right? They didn't want to see if she was jabbed in her muscles because they didn't give a shit, people, right? They were more interested in torturing the fucking family, right, than they were about actually doing their damn job. It's not a crime scene. They don't want to see it as a crime scene because it props up their ICU unit. Like I said, they get funding for this stuff. They get funding to hook up dead bodies, right? You know how much money that costed people, the taxpayers, to do that? And who did it benefit? Sure in the hell didn't benefit anybody from our family, right? Right? Didn't benefit any of ShaMay's friends to see her tongue starting to produce out and protrude out, and her eyeballs leaking out of her freaking eye sockets, and little water blisters on her freaking arms and crap. There's a crime scene, but they don't want that. They're making too much money off of this fentanyl, people. That's what it is. They're making too much money off of this fentanyl, and they get to do their science experiments on innocent human beings that are in the crossfire of freaking union sector capitalizing off of dead bodies. And here's another thing, people. When these paramedics were working on her, they took her off the couch, put her on the ground, on the carpet, and then for some reason or another, I don't know why they did it, but they moved her onto the kitchen floor, which, by the way, is a cement floor with vinyl on it, which would be extremely cold. Because they were trying to control her temperature in death. That's what they were doing as they were trying to jumpstart her heart. Additionally, it is worth noting that a body's temperature will drop much more slowly if the body has been exposed to extreme cold, such as being left outdoors, submerged in water, or icy conditions. Well, she wasn't any of those, but she was placed from a carpeted floor onto a vinyl floor that was extremely cold as they worked on her for 15-20 minutes to try and get her heart started, knowing that she had died. Okay, people? Why? You need to ask yourself why. This is to determine the time of death. An external examination of a corpse is essential at 2 stages in a forensic science process. The first time an external examination is carried out is upon discovery of a corpse, which is what they should have done. They should have pronounced her dead on April 11th by at least 10:30 in the morning, if not by 10. Or whenever they showed up. At this point, the body should be checked for visible signs of injury and those injuries that are most likely to have caused subsequent death. But no, they wanted to resuscitate a dead body. So they put her on a vinyl floor to cool her off while they did it. At this stage, both the pathologist and scenes of crime officer, in other words, the coroner, are present, as well as authorized police personnel, and the body is checked over in what is known as a preliminary examination. Whilst the scene of crime officer is taking photographs of the corpse and surrounding area, in a particular photographing wounds and injuries, of course nobody looked for anything, right? You know, because she did it to herself, and therefore she deserved what she got. And as long as the funding keeps going into the ICU ward, and, you know, police don't have to do their investigations, and, you know, MCFD can swoop in and take children, not that they're taking Amari, but, you know, it is under investigation, and, you know, it just feeds that union, people. Okay? Because who's benefiting from all this? It sure in the heck isn't ShaMay. It's not ShaMay's family. It wasn't Uncle John that benefited what happened to Uncle John. Everybody else milked Uncle John for his money. He got tucked away like a dirty secret, and then eventually he got put on some machines himself and died. After all the paperwork was done. Well, the courts just play lip service and fake transcripts. Falsified transcripts. And then send me to the cops. As if the cops are going to be investigating Uncle John's disappearance in an ethical manner, right? When they sat up there and told my son to go get a lawyer knowing that we couldn't afford one. Like, serious. Clothing will also be examined for any signs of excreted body fluids and or fibers. Well, she peed herself, and she also defecated herself because there's stains on the couch downstairs to prove that. Once the body has been removed, in other words, she died sitting up, people, not laying down. How the hell did she get laid down? You tell me. When she died sitting up. Once the body has been removed from the scene of crime and taken for pathological examination, there is another external examination to be carried out before an autopsy can be completed. Well, they didn't want to do an autopsy, right? Because they condone murder. That's why, right? It feeds into their industry. This examination is conducted to determine height and weight and also to facilitate the photographing. Okay, prior to that, on the other page, they would have taken her temperature, but in death, the temperature can go up, so it's not unusual to go up, or in this case, they tried to bring it down, right? Because on another thing that I printed out, it says that when you die, you start to heat up. At one point in the hospital, when they took off the ice packs, she was heating up to the point where she was starting to cook. And the people that were visiting her got all concerned and started demanding that they start putting ice packs on her again. So they hooked her up to a cooling machine. Are you listening to me? This is my beautiful daughter. I don't want to jump too fast here. During the external examination, fingernails are clipped or scraped clean so that any material underneath may be examined for traces of skin or blood, possibly by an attacker. They didn't do that, people, because they didn't care. Right? Because again, it feeds into their ICU to hook her up, put her on display for a little while, get the family all geeked up and, psychologically warfare and terrorize them and, suggest that she was just an addict. She did it to herself. You already got one addict in the family, so, don't be surprised that you got another one. Pubic hair is combed for traces of skin in the area around her sexual organs, particularly in sexually related murders, is swabbed. Injuries such as cuts and bruises are marked out, and in cases of stabbings or shooting, the entrance wounds are measured. Well, of course, she wasn't stabbed or shot. She was hot capped. So that's, that's sociably acceptable, right? It's condoned murder to be hot capped. Throughout the process, the pathologist will make audio notes of his or her discoveries, and assistants will keep photographs and make written notes, blah, 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 blah. This is making me sick, people. This is so making me sick. I fucking hate Surrey, man. People are so corrupt in Surrey. When it comes to identifying the deceased forensic, but I'm sure it's like this all across the freaking continent because people are just out of control. It's all about money, 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 right? Gotta prop up those unions, gotta prop up those science fucking experiments, gotta prop up those ICU wards by any means necessary, gotta prop up those old folks' homes by any means necessary, right? And then stages of an autopsy. Well, whatever's been in her stomach sat there and soured, turned into gases, so they wouldn't even know what was in her stomach. And that's why the coroner's saying, no, body's ready to be picked up. Unless, of course, the cops say otherwise, but, as far as I'm concerned, it's over, right? She died of fentanyl, get over it. Your daughter was a junkie. And if she wasn't a junkie, she was a partier, right? She had deep hidden secrets, right? And I don't like to do my job because it's cushy. And that coroner straight up and fucking lied to me. He said that they can't tell time of death, right? They can't tell the amount of fentanyl or whatever it was in her system and how it got in there. She lied. She straight up lied to me. I'm telling you, when you talk to these people, you have to record them. Like, you have to. Because then when I called her on, oh, you're twisting my words. No. It says right here, after this, okay, first, they go in, depending on the trauma of the body, are removed in specific sequence. Blood samples are taken, samples of DNA testing, as when necessary, but not necessarily in all autopsies. And toxicologist tests are carried out on the heart for signs of poisoning. if no physical injuries were have manifest themselves. After this, abdomen is examined and tissue samples are taken for analysis, and the contents of the stomach are examined. Examining the contents of the stomach can determine when a victim last had a meal and also what that meal consisted of. This is vitally important if determining time of death is a major factor. As with anything we eat, the body takes time to digest it, removing valuable nutrients and energy producing elements, and this takes time moving through the digestive tract. Meals that are partially digested, completely digested, or not digested at all can all lead to time frames being adopted for the time of death. Samples of bile from the gallbladder, something eye fluid, but of course her eyes were leaking out, so they've destroyed that evidence. Liver, tissues, of course that was just rotting in her body, and urine are also taken for toxicology tests, as some poisons may not show in one part of the body but will show up in others. Well, we don't know how she ingested the fentanyl. We don't know. She did it to herself. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. She's dead now. Get over it. Just like Uncle John. Get over it. You know? He didn't love you no more after 35 years. He didn't love you no more after he raised all those kids. Right? He only pleaded and begged to come home, but nobody would listen to him at Fraser Health Authority because they were too busy going cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Well, how much funding did they get to hook up my dead daughter's body on a freaking machine for almost a week? Huh? I can imagine only how much funding. Because it sure in the hell didn't benefit this family. Once these procedures have been completed, the pathologist will then turn his or her attention to the head area. The first thing they will do is look for signs of head injury. They didn't bother to look for signs of head injury, people, because again, it was just all about the fentanyl. Fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl. It was the fentanyl that killed her. She deserved to be dead. She deserved it. She was a fentanyl user, which should have been visible during both external examinations. Sometimes, however, head trauma cannot be visible simply by sight alone. The pathologist makes a triangular incision across the top of the scalp to reveal the brain, and first of all examines it inside the head. Well, just rotted in her head. Started leaking down her spine. Then once this has been completely satisfactorily, the brain is removed for a more thorough inspection and also for tissue samples to be taken. Well, hers turned to mush on their machines. After all these procedures have been carried out, the organs are then placed back into the body, and the body is carefully sewn up again. Once these procedures have been completed, it is then the pathologist's job to report his or her findings to the police, who will then be charged with the task to do what is next. It is important to note that although these procedures are carried out more often than not in the case of natural death, if carried out as the result of a violent death or murder, then the body is not released to the family for burial until all investigations have been completed and the inquest carried out. The coroner told me to get ready to get my daughter out of the morgue from the Surrey Memorial Hospital. Does that sound like an investigation to you? Does that sound like these people that work in this freaking fucking province care about people getting murdered through fentanyl? No, they don't, because they obviously are benefiting financially one way or another as a union to this crisis that is not only wiping out people on the streets off the planet, right? But they're also creeping into the houses and being used as a tool to murder innocent young people that have a bright future ahead of them for whatever perverse reason these people are murdering people for, while the cops sit back and do nothing about it, while the hospitals do nothing about it, while just government union in general do nothing about it. Just like they didn't do anything about Uncle John, people. They didn't do anything about Uncle John either, right? Because it's all money. It's just that superannuation life insurance policy. It's that, right? That, a healthcare benefit plan, that dental plan, that disability plan, that, superannuation retirement package, buyouts, and everything else. You're talking millions and billions and billions and billions of dollars for a very small fraction of a population that just don't give a shit a rat ass about us. Like, seriously, people, they held up my daughter. She was a dead body. Why? What was the purpose of it? Other than for psychological warfare and to get more funding and to just be negligent to the crises that is killing off innocent lives. Right? Well, you know what? One day, I don't know when it's going to happen, but one day, it's going to happen to them. Somebody's going to go to work, and it's going to be just easy like a Monday morning, and then halfway through the day, 10 people are just going to drop fucking dead. Boom. And when that happens, then these people that perpetrate this shit on our society and use and abuse vulnerable families so that they can sit up high on the horse, call themselves government workers, and they're entitled to all these benefit packages and life insurance policies and superannuation, fucking this, that, and everything else. When it happens to them, when it starts happening, like really start fucking happening to them, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. It'll be too late. Nobody's going to feel sorry for them. Nobody's going to feel sorry for them because they sure in the hell don't feel sorry. They say, oh, we're sorry it happened to you. No, you're not sorry. You're not sorry. You're not sorry for anything that's happened to this family or for any other innocent family that's in the crossfire of your guys' dirty damn politics. Okay? So, I'm like sitting here thinking, I need to file another lawsuit. Like, seriously, I do. Because this is bullshit. I'm sorry, you don't hook up dead bodies to a fucking machine. Let them sit there and rot and get, right? For almost a week and then get mad because the family has been led to believe that somehow she was alive when in fact she was dead all along. And then don't want to do a follow-up, right? Because it was just a fentanyl death. That's all it was. She did it to herself. She was just a partier, right? She was celebrating going to school even though she didn't feel very well. She had to celebrate, right? Because that's how the union fucking justifies it, right? Final note, right? 24 to 72 hours after death, the internal organs decompose. In other words, shut down or severely damaged, don't work anymore. 3 to 5 days after death, the body starts to bloat. ShaMay was extremely bloated because, of course, her kidneys weren't working, and blood-containing foam leaks from the mouth and nose. But, of course, you don't see it leaking out of her mouth because they had a tube in her mouth, right, that was sucking out whatever was leaking out of her mouth. So here's the thing, people. I'm sick. This is making me not well, obviously. I have every right to be feeling sick. Right? The moment the heart stops beating is what doctors officially regard as the time of death. Once it stops, the rest of the body begins to die, albeit at different rates. With the heart no longer pumping, the first thing to happen in the process of death is that our blood stops flowing and pools wherever it is in our veins and arteries. I'm sure ShaMay had something like that, but because they put her on a cold floor, it slowed down the process, or it was always there and they just didn't tell us about it because they knew what they had done in terms of jump-starting a heart on a dead body. With our blood suddenly not mobile, our bodies begin to change color. Part of our bodies change to purplish red or bluish purple because the blood settles due to gravity in the lowest part of our bodies. Other parts turn deathly pale. That's what ShaMay looked like, deathly pale. Since the blood reduced hemoglobin to be exact, is less concentrated and more drained to her lower extremities. And in this case, it would be her back. Because when I came to her, she was on her back. That helps forensics solve cases, but they're not interested in solving my daughter's case. Can use this phenomenon known as livor mortis to tell if a body has been moved since death, because after death our blood congeals in our blood vessels like a layer of fat which congeals on top of homemade stock or fried foods. Algor mortis cools the body temperature. The second most popular form of mortis, algor mortis, is next thing that happens to our bodies when we die, known as death chill. Our bodies lose their 37 degrees Celsius warmth and slowly assimilate to the ambient room temperature, losing about 1.5 or 0.8 Celsius per hour. Better known as rigor mortis, does not happen until a few hours after the moment of death. That didn't happen to ShaMay because it was under an hour, hour and a half of when she died. So that hadn't happened yet. The process starts with the eyelids and the neck muscles. Well, who knows? I'm not a doctor, wasn't looking for it. Followed by the entire body, stiffening up due to the depletion. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Is there anything else? Oh, there's page 2. The saying goes, where are we? Our bodies can twitch. And flex for hours after death. As muscles tissue die, they can contract. If enough contract, a visible muscle twitch or reflex can be seen, making it seem like a corpse is trying to regain consciousness. Or as in the death rattle. Sounds like snoring, but it is not. The skin on our face flattens out. In a bizarre perk for Botox-loving people everywhere, our faces get an immediate free injection of Botox when we die. Well, not exactly Botox, but since our muscles are no longer contracting, the wrinkles on our face mostly disappear. Well, we know that happened to ShaMay. We void our bowels. Because there's a stain on the couch downstairs, people, where she was sitting, right along with a urine spot. I seen the urine spot, and when I went down a couple days later, I could see a stain where she had actually defecated. Commonly joked, and that would have been sitting up. Commonly joked about on sitcoms, this fact does actually happen to our bodies when we die. As rigor mortis is affecting most of our body, some parts, more accurately, are being loosened. Since the brain keeps our body's splinters closed as part of its regulations of involuntary functions, when the brain shuts down, the splinters open, leading a corpse to rid itself of urine or feces left in the body. So why did they come along and resuscitate my daughter for 20 minutes to get her heart going just so that they could hook her up to a machine? I know they need funding for the ICU. Right? It's in the best interest of the corpse. Not the patient, the corpse. No other object does putrefy better apply than to a corpse. As our cells die, they release enzymes notifying local bacteria and fungi of the event. that bacteria and fungi rush to being decomposition, releasing noxious and putrid gases and odors. Well, I don't know how long that takes, but she was full of bubbles, people. Well, we didn't have to worry about that. Our bodies can moan. Well, she sounded like she was snoring. Post-mortem effects which scares even modern-day doctors and nurses. Our bodies can make sounds after death. The combination of rigor mortis, including the vocal cord muscles and gases secreted by bacteria in our guts, can lead dead bodies to fart, squeak, and even moan. Or snore. The immune system shuts down. Our bacteria-rich guts becomes a breeding ground for massive explosion of bacteria. Once our immune system shuts off, our gut bacteria begins digesting our intestines before spreading to other organs. That's why she had all the organ damage. The gases produced in our intestines and form our decomposing organs also make our eyes bulge from our sockets and our tongues swell up and extend out of our mouths. That's what she would look like, people, right before they shut off the machines. And this is exactly why the doctor wanted to cut off the machines ASAP, because he knew what he had. They knew all along, but they had to run it for the mile, because it was just a matter of time before she would explode. Video surfaced on the internet of marine biologists poking a hole in a dead beached whale to retrieve the pressure from built-up gas, to relieve the pressure from built-up gas. When he punctured the whale, an explosion of built-up gas shot out of the carcass with a loud boom. The same happened to our bodies. Okay, people, like seriously, man. Now we know why they don't want to do an autopsy. Because they ruined the evidence. They destroyed it. It's easier just to say it was fentanyl and that she did it to herself. Because she was just a nobody on this planet. Right? Just another targeted individual for the union sector to exploit. Okay, I'm going to put this first, and then all this other stuff I was just babbling on about. She died, people, April 11th. Her body was dead. They hooked her up to a machine only because they started the heart on a corpse. Okay? They did their tests. They knew she was dead, but they kept her on the machines anyway. Right? They made it sound like she was alive to some degree when in fact she wasn't. So that by the time the 16th came, this day here, so that's 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, 5 day, because we're not going to count the 11th. By the 5th day, the doctor was demanding that we shut off the machines because he said it was going to get ugly. Okay? Because what they did, I'm telling you, is they jump-started a dead heart. The body had already been dead for quite a while. Everything that you're going to hear over the next little bit is confirmation of that. And the doctor knew what was coming. But of course, Tisha wanted to keep her on life support for 65 years. So she tried to hang out right up until Friday, because she wasn't ready to let go, because she didn't understand what the doctor was saying, because he didn't come out and say it. He should have said, your daughter is a corpse. We jump-started a corpse's heart, and the body is decomposing, and we need to shut off the machines, because no matter what we do, it's not going to solve any problems because she's dead. She died on that day. That's her official death right there. I'm telling you, this warrants a lawsuit, okay? Because the coroner got mad at me when I reminded her that my daughter died on the 11th, and she said, no, she didn't. No, she didn't. She died on the 19th. Her machines were cut off on the 19th. I said, no, she died on the 11th. On the 19th, she was already liquefying people in terms of decomposition of a corpse. Internal organs sets in. Her heart was damaged, her liver was damaged, her kidneys were damaged, her lungs were damaged, her brain was damaged. Right? Not to mention everything else that was damaged. But of course, they're not going to go into the great big long list of things because they don't want to tell you what they did. Right? Which can lead to breakdown of cell walls, loss of cohesion between tissues. She was liquefying. That's why her eyes were oozing out. That's why her tongue was protruding out. That's why blistering was on her skin. Liquefaction of most of our internal organs, turning our bodies into sloshing, gaseous, bulbous corpses. This is so disgusting, people. They had this thing squished on her face to hold her face in place. Though our skin loosens, it is not necessarily a good thing. Once gases build up in the body, and loosening or slippage of our skin amplifies, detaching our skin from the bone and muscles underneath. That's what would have happened in a day or two after the fact. I'm so sick with this, people. So sick with this.